please engage us. We shall be happy to support you with those solutions. We would also like to mention that we provide insurance services. Okay, as you access these loans come with insurance. We also have standalone insurance services, whether it's for purposes of education for your children. We also have our PAL banking customers who can access travel insurance with a value up to $55,000.
I believe this again will enable us to reach out to the underserved communities or segments of the customer segments. Again, another exciting solution. But this and many more will be, you'll be seeing more of that, especially as we usher in initiatives for 2024.
It's super fast internet. Oh, it's a super camera. It's a super battery.
One battery phone.
Yeah, it's a super deal. Get the Kabode Super from MTN now at a reduced initial deposit of only 49,000 shillings and pay the balance in Pola for as low as 833 shillings per day. Grab this Super Kabode deal and get 2 GB of free MTN data every month for 8 months. Get the Kabode Super now from any MTN shop countrywide. Everywhere you go, MTN. Regulated by UCC.
No more rashes and irritations. Movit Herbal Jelly and Herbal Soap is rich in natural herbs for a smooth and glowing skin.
Movit all day confidence.
The energy of this land was born in the hearts of these men, of these women. It comes to life in the power of these colors and the memory of this sense. The energy of this land comes from here. It comes from Africa, and it vibrates in each of us.
And powered by Africa.
Oryx Gas, powered by Africa.
Get value for your money by choosing the right paint. With Global Paints, you don't just paint, but paint for generations to come. Make Global Paints a paint of choice and make your building a paradise. We have weather coat emulsion, undercoat emulsion, silk vinyl emulsion, flat emulsion, super gloss and high gloss. Global Paint, a reliable product.
Amos Wekesa is a spirited and devoted advocate and champion for Uganda. His never-ending optimism, curiosity, and passion for all things Ugandan can be felt in every tweet and interaction. Amos also puts his money where his mouth is by investing in domestic tourism so that people get a feel of what Uganda has to offer. Amos, a grateful nation thanks you. You are unstoppable. MTN, the Unstoppable Network, celebrates you. Visit GreatLakesSafaris.com and together, let's support Ugandans like Amos who are driving our country's unstoppable progress.
Support to the United Nations. The non-aligned movement consistently supported the United Nations as a platform for addressing global issues. The movement emphasizes the importance of multilateralism and diplomatic solutions, aligning with the United Nations mission to promote international cooperation, and maintain peace and security.
Yes, we thank you so much for following all our programs, and we are still in the mood of keeping you posted with whatever happens in the line of the non-aligned movement, the 19th edition that we are hosting here in Uganda. But as we continued to keep in the mood of hosting the non-aligned movement, the world in Uganda, again we woke up to the sad news of the demise of the Honorable Cecilia Atim Ogwal Babra, and we have shared a lot. We broke the news of her death. We've had the speaker going to her home, the speaker addressing the press at Parliament, because this was a senior person. Now, I am joined by a member of Parliament, a former member of Parliament, a honorable, once honorable, ever honorable. Yes, and also an ambassador. His name is the Honorable James William Chinobe, former ambassador of Uganda to Khartoum, and you're now here at home. How is everything, Honorable?
Very well. The country is in a very good mood. And definitely we are following Honorable Barrio Musi's advice. We have to receive. Oh, I had forgotten. We have to receive our guests with a smile.
Yes.
And definitely smiles and courtesy are always lasting impressions. So I also add my voice to urge Ugandans. Let's receive our guests so that they have memorable times as they leave Uganda. And wish that they should come back.
People took it for just a literal smile, but I think the Honorable meant courtesy and cooperation.
Of course. And given that Uganda is known for its nature of hospitality, being very hospitable to people, I think it's exactly meant that, because people are coming to Uganda with an image that when you're in Uganda, you're actually at home. So we all know our homes, even if you had a quarrel the previous day with Mama, and the visitor comes in. Definitely, you all that. Definitely, you put on that semblance that it may not be all well with everybody, but since we have visitors, Honorable Yamusa advised us, and I take it seriously that let's be hospitable, let's be courteous, let's keep smiling.
Okay.
We don't need to keep our gloomy faces.
As we smiled, again we woke up to the sad news of losing the Honorable Cecilia Atim Ogwal. Personally, I had the chance to interview her about her life journey, and she shared a lot of information. I've actually released the video of her saying she has never been Miss Uganda. She did not win, somebody else won. After hearing many people releasing information, former Miss Uganda, she told me she never
contested.
She contested, but she said a girl from Toro, because the competition was based on promotion of tea growing and tea promotion. This girl knew how to serve tea and things like that. We shall re-air that program, I think.
Which is also very good, because it was not about beauty but the brains that was being promoted.
So how did you know Cecilia Ogwal, and what would you say about her demise?
First of all, just like you and any other Ugandan, our smiles were cut short by the breaking news in the morning of the demise of Honorable Cecilia. I've not been in the country much, so it's a surprise. The first question even that came to my mind is that was she really sick? Because I didn't know that she was even unwell, and if she was really, it was not really that very serious, because most senior people like her will get to know about the trend of their health, and you get to know when they are unwell. But it's a shock, and a very surprising shock, that Aunt Sisi has to depart at this time. Aunt Sisi was our common way of addressing her, because I served with her in the 6th and 7th Parliament. She was slightly much younger then, but she was motherly. And that's why many of us always used to refer to her.
Even then she was senior to the rest of you.
Oh, yes, of course she was senior to many of us. And of course that time of the politics, which was still movement politics, we had a very good time of articulating issues as they are, without really any encumbrance that maybe I believe in this line and that line. But one will always remember Aunt Sise as a person who had expertise, who had a very wide knowledge base. And at that time, we had just come up with a constituency for ladies and representing districts. But you'd see that her knowledge was always spreading even beyond the constituency of the ladies. So really, when you talk about Aunt Sise, you always talk about knowledge, being articulate, being frank, most of her says, and in these eras where you hear people talking of speaking in tongues, she's a person you always talk to either as a person, but you find that whatever you share with her is not different from what she says in public. As a country, I think we've lost her at a time when we still needed her services, especially mentoring the young people. And that's why I entirely agree with you that we need to air her story, because such stories from very senior people who have been around for some time are very inspirational to Ugandans, and they give a lot of insights because she was a very knowledgeable person. I served only those 2 terms with her, but eventually for me, when I left Parliament, I went into diplomatic work. But as you know, parliamentary committees also carried out oversight. So on some occasions, we used to bump into each other when she's still performing the oversight functions as a parliamentarian and us doing our work as public officers. But you'd always find that every time when you interface with the Honorable Cecilia Ogwal, you're talking to somebody who adds value to what you're doing.
Wow.
The country is going to miss her. We pray that the Almighty delivers her in the right place. As a human being, she may have erred in any way, but let's pray that the God looks at her with mercy on the failings and grant her the peace and rest.
As we mourn, again, we have to smile. Now
now we go back to the smile, oh my God.
As you can see on the screen, His Excellency President William Ruto is touching base at Entebbe International Airport to be part of the ongoing international summits that Uganda is hosting. So as you continue listening to us, be also aware that His Excellency William Samoei Ruto from the neighboring Kenya is arriving and has arrived actually touching base at Entebbe International Airport. Our reporters have sending in the feed live, and of course we are keeping you posted like the duty is. Honorable, you must have been following politics at least at a closer range than me during the days of 1994, 5, 6. As I was talking to a senior politician in the morning, and he was telling me that during those days the UPC was at the extreme end of being opposition against the NRM government. And she was, at that time, was it Secretary General or something? But by the time I interviewed her, she was calling President Museveni, my brother. My brother, involve the women. My brother, you still have the duty to fight poverty. I actually asked her, the brother and what you're asking for, we hear opposition people a little being kind of aggressive in the tongue. What causes this? She says, she is my brother, but I have to say this. What brought the calmness of the former her and what she became later on in Parliament?
I think it's a generational thing. When you look at the nature of the politics we exercise this time around, and the nature of the politics of our comrades who were there before us, I think it is the upbringing and the tolerance levels, and I think people were acting more civilized. Because today you find it very difficult to call somebody who has a different political view a brother or a sister. Two, of course, they're generational brother and sister, because when you look at the bracket in which they were serving, they must have shared very good national issues. Because as I said, Cecilia, Honorable late Cecilia was one person who was always broadly knowledgeable and broadly grounded. They could have disagreed, one being in UPM and maybe another one being in UPC, but broadly they had at the back of their mind the Uganda and the way Uganda should have gone, because definitely UPC was the immediate preceding government when the NRM came in. And those generation, many of them of their generation, and some of them even eventually served in NRM, as you know.
Yeah.
So I think it was a generational culture of tolerance and being quoth, which is gradually eroding. You could not hear those days people abusing their seniors, the way these days the media view the young people, insult and abuse people, and it's something that I think we need to work on. Most of us who are now also going into the direction where they've been, we feel sad that as a country, the generation behind us is going to be a bit, unfortunately, not as civilized.
Honorable, what do you think has caused that?
I think partly we, the leaders, I think there's a message we normally don't give to our children. Two, I think there is a parenting gap. There is a parenting gap. When we were growing up, you'd know how to deal with visitors in the home, and children would never be allowed to say anything bad. But these days we discuss our people we disagree with in the presence of the children, and sometimes insult
when the children
are hearing. And I think this is really a very, very unfortunate development.
Would you exonerate your generation?
No, our generation, the generation I belong to, I think is a bit different, but us now...
No. In terms of you grooming, those of us that are following
that's what I'm saying, that the parenting...
Both at home and as
the
leaders.
parenting gap has been created too by the fact that in those days we used to stay with the children. So for us, we grew up in homes. Children grew up in daycare centers. Children grew up in boarding schools. Yeah. So you hardly have enough time. And the parents now, because of the hustling, we also have completely little time. So I've seen many homes, the de facto mothers and caretakers of the homes are our maids and houseboys and house girls. So you can now see that parenting gap. Children don't have enough time to understand their parents. They don't have enough time to see but their peers are different and elsewhere. The worst scenario now has come with social media.
Okay.
The social media now has complicated the already bad situation. Phones have got now internet, because for us when we were growing, we're children who were born before computer, we call ourselves BCs,
yes.
BBC. But now the children, we started with the desktops, they graduated to laptops, and now every telephone is now a computer.
True.
It has everything. Recently now
unfiltered, actually.
Unfiltered. Recently now there's a new development of TikTok. Oh my God. It's terrible. So the children are mentored, they are nurtured, they pick stories and so on from the social media.
Yeah.
The media grooms people, negatively or positively, but it has now become a very lead instrument in making people celebs. But you know the type of celebs now. It's no longer being a celeb for something positive, but celeb for anything. So the role of the media is now a big menace. And
Us in the mainstream or still the social media?
No.
Or both of us are now the same?
You just look at yourselves, even in the mainstream. Maybe I remember, and I think it used to be a monopoly of this media house, that professionalism then was very, very paramount.
Definitely.
But because of competition, sometimes
the private wing has brought in
it compromised some of those lines, and sometimes when you talk to people, why don't
you watching us?
Social media is not, UBC is not as entertaining. Now, so, and we are now losing out on now the remaining media house.
The loose bit of doing things the wrong way is being looked at as actually what is right. To you watching us, that is His Excellency William Samoei Ruto being received at Entebbe International Airport to join his colleagues, brothers and sisters, heads of governments and states who are here in Uganda for the non-aligned movement, and that is in its day 4. He has come with a delegation, as you see, they're disembarking on the plane, and he was received by, among others, the Honorable Henry Okello Oryem. You can see he's introducing different Ugandan officials to President William Samoei Ruto. So far, there are a number that are already here. Honorable, let me take you to that direction of the non-aligned movement. We expect over 100 government officials, international, here. Actually, over 500 are already here. The presidents have started.
Since you've talked of over 100, so any figure above
yes.
is already big enough. But it is.
What do you make of this? As Uganda hosting this big
as someone who has been at the other end in abstract as a diplomat, I look at this as a major diplomatic event for Uganda from many angles. First of all, I want to congratulate my president of Uganda and Ugandans that we are not only hosting but we're also assuming the chairmanship of the non-aligned movement. Briefly, I want us to just look more positively on the benefits. For example, the first benefit is that you've talked about President Ruto arriving, but you might not be aware that even cameras back in Kenya actually focusing on the arrival of President Ruto in Entebbe of Kampala, Uganda.
True.
So it means that every delegation that keeps arriving here, their home
Uganda
countries,
is live
their media houses in their home countries are already showing their presidents arriving in Kampala, Uganda. What does this mean for you people who know the media? In that we are getting unpaid for mobilization and publicity of Entebbe Airport in Kampala, Uganda, all the conference and everything that is about Uganda.
True.
So I remember some time back when we had to, I think we paid CNN. There's a CNN media house, I think we paid to promote Uganda, and we paid $2 million.
Yes.
Just to clean the image. And you can't even be sure whether everybody watches CNN. But this time around, every media house, global,
at least we'll have a second to mention Uganda.
So, what an opportunity.
I was talking to somebody who said these opportunities are too many, but we have to be strategically ready to grab and absorb them.
That's the next stage.
What do you understand of the strategic readiness?
That is the next stage, because if you don't even appreciate that they're here, then you don't even prepare. That's why we need to tell people that they should look at this as an opportunity and a blessing to the country.
This is not the first time we're having a big event here.
No,
Chogam was here.
I think this is much bigger than Chogam, by the way.
Really?
Non-aligned is the second biggest global organization to UN.
The Chogam had the Queen here.
Yes, but it is
a very big delegation
smaller
from
than
the UK.
Yes, I will tell you, in terms of heads of government and state, this has a broader number.
But I guess
the NAM countries are more than the countries in Commonwealth. They're more than AU, African Union. They're more than European Union. So you are talking about an organization which is just next.
How about in terms of publicity? And in terms of weight, in terms of attracting attention?
Now, when you're talking about an unaligned movement,
yes,
you're talking about countries that don't have a bloc. Ugandans need to understand that when we talk about non-aligned, it means there is the capitalist camp and maybe the socialist camp. Both of them are interested to know what we say. Yet maybe if you add Chogam, Chogam belongs to the bloc of the NATO and their allies. So possibly there could be others who may not even be thinking about the Queen and their colleagues coming in Uganda. This one is a very, very important forum. First of all, it has contemporaries, developing countries. People will share common problems and common concerns. And I want to ask Ugandans, first of all, to look at this, that the world, the entire world, irrespective of which bloc, is focused on Uganda, whether it's CNN or CBC, whatever you want to call it, the international media, then plus the respective home media houses of the delegations that are coming in here. They're also focusing on their presidents or their delegations and what they are doing. Now, in terms of publicity and positioning ourselves, as a diplomat who has been sitting in one of the capitals, this is an opportunity to have all the other capitals now looking at my capital back home, and now it takes you to the second level, that after this, what next? Because after this publicity, you are publicizing two things, which are very major also. The first one is that there is a country called Uganda. Some of us who have been traveling outside, you get surprised. You get some place, and even in Europe, where you think people are informed, they say, oh, you're from Uganda, in South Africa? And they think Uganda is in South Africa. Then, of course, in terms of leaders, they say, oh, Uganda, Amin? But you tell them Amin died many years ago. Oh, you still have AIDS? These are things in the past, because Uganda has been known for some of those bad things. Now, if people are going to talk about Uganda with something more positive, that is a plus. One, and secondly, hosting so many summits that are going to sit here at the same time. You have IGAD,
exactly.
you have GIS 77, and you have this. Talks a lot about the capacity of Uganda hosting the numbers we're talking about.
You have been in Khartoum representing Uganda as an ambassador for Uganda. Today in the IGAD platform, one of the discussions will be the transitional leadership in South Sudan.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, and what would be your expectations?
Let me finish the other point, that we are promoting the image of Uganda, but you're also promoting the capacity of Uganda hosting similar events. They may not be politicians, but when you talk about the delegation that you're going to have over 1,000 people converging here,
yes.
Any other country or organization planning to host a similarly big number would always look at Uganda's capacity to host such an event, where you can hospitably host about that number.
Okay.
Now, IGAD, the issue of Southern Sudan has been on for some time, and I think you may have been following that the transition sort of delayed. There were targets which were supposed to have been hit. So I think this is one of the issues that we are going to talk about. However, we have a major problem again, in that the Khartoum-based government, which was also a major co-facilitator in helping South Sudan, is already now also held in another quagmire situation.
Yes.
So the agenda, I haven't looked at the agenda, but I want to believe strongly that you cannot talk about now the stability and peace in South Sudan without looking at examining the challenges of the Khartoum government. And as you may know, a few days later, I was seeing General Dagalo here trying to present the current situation. Of course, this didn't please the General Burhan, who is the de facto president. And I think this is a matter which they have to discuss. Because for me, I don't see any problem if these are two people against each other, to listen to them. But I think the general took it as taking a position by allowing him to be listened to. But I believe that's one also of the other issues that will be tackled very strongly in the IGAD meeting. Yeah. Of course, IGAD will have other issues. We have the issue of Sudan and Ethiopia over the dam. And I believe that is also going, it may be on the agenda. I said I'm not aware of the agenda today, but definitely these are regional.
The little that we have managed
these
to
are regional issues,
gotten.
but the most important thing is that you're going to have 3 summits.
Yes.
The NAM, the IGAD, and then the G77 plus China at the same venue and in the same country.
When these summits get to see it, we hear of resolutions.
Yeah.
There is already a Kampala declaration by the ministers in the NAM. The IGAD has taken resolutions now and then.
Yeah.
Why do we again get to see countries erupt into war, leadership problems, and things like that, even with these summits? Do they really have binding authority, and can they be taken seriously?
Now, diplomacy is a non-violent, non-active means of resolving disagreements, conflicts, or even advertising or promoting interests. Because when you talk about diplomatic practice, you're talking about countries that are sovereign, which have their own respective interests, but they have to market them alongside other countries' interests. So this arena creates an interface. And when you get in there, it doesn't mean that you have extinguished the sources of conflicts.
Okay.
But you tackle subject by subject. For example, now if the issue is about regional security, all countries will discuss and agree and make a resolution that we need to tackle A, B, C, D, E. But in the process of evaluating or implementing them, you find maybe another challenge comes up. For example, some people now talk about these regional blocks as being useless because now Kenya and Tanzania at each other over the airlines. So, but this is normal. They have an agreement on how the airlines operate. Possibly that could have been one of the areas. It doesn't mean that the East African community has disintegrated completely. So,
although the expectation would be that because you have agreement somewhere, then it is easy to handle issues that would come on the periphery.
Easy is an understatement. For us, we think that absence of war does not necessarily mean peace. You may not have a war erupting, but doesn't mean that it is totally peaceful. What you do is to address all those things that would prevent that stage from erupting to a war. For example, we're talking about resolutions on inter-regional trade. in the region here.
Yes.
I remember in the past, Uganda had nothing to sell in most of the regional countries. Right now we produce, and you may be able to remember some of the last conflicts which we had over milk, which we had over eggs. All these are tradable communities. What you do is to go back, sit down and say, by the way, in the exchange, you are bringing in ABCD, I'm also bringing this. How can we move on? What I'm trying to derive here is that you always have conflicting interests. You always have clashes of interests. And what happens is that these fora help you to bring those clashes together and then try to discuss and get a harmonized.
Now to continue to Entebbe State House, I think.
State House.
Yes, and we'll keep you posted. That's where the IGAD summit is going to sit today in a few minutes. Some presidents actually flew in yesterday. President Salva Kiir, President of Djibouti, and President of Somalia. President Ruto joins them, and I saw a plane still at the airport.
There could be another
it could be South Africa or some other person. We'll keep you posted.
So that's now we're talking about the capacity. If you can have many planes, presidential planes. Those who have been to Entebbe will know that we have a VVIP wing now. Presidents can always park their planes, go in the meetings and depart at leisure and fly back to their respective countries. So the point you're mentioning is that why could they be useful if we agree, have resolutions, and then the following day one is at each other? Nature, human nature, is nature about conflicts. Why? Because we always have different interests. But whenever they clash, and you resolve them harmoniously, that's what they call civilization.
I think the question is about the magnitude of the clashes, even when they are platforms for agreement. That's the magnitude that now raises questions.
No, I think there are demands. For example, I'll give you the very recent one, which took Uganda to court. When we decided that we should have one oil importing company, and the region had other importers from another country, they went to their president, said, no, you should not give in to Uganda's demand to have one, because when he gets one, shall not have anywhere to sell. That is a very emerging and new conflict. What you need to do is to sit down. For us as Uganda, we went to court, and the court I believe, is supposed to, a civilized way of how to listen to each other. So these conflicts will never end. An interest will always emerge into something else. As you recall, was it about a few months, or is it about a year since we had problems with Rwanda? It's about
2 years now.
Yeah, about a year, or 2 years now. We had tensions, but through diplomatic means, we started resolving them. In the past, that would have been a fight. That's why diplomatic means and these resolutions, you just fall back and say, by the way, we resolved like this. And by reminding each other, the president may, because we have politics in all countries. I have my voters in Uganda, and maybe Kenya has got voters. And when they have their issues, they go to their presidents. The president says, you see, I committed myself in this East African Community Trade Pact that we should be doing ABCD. So you have at least a tool to fall back to and get a harmonious way of getting. So without such a resolution, you don't have any guiding document. The only challenge is that we cannot be able to enforce them directly.
What stops that again?
Sovereignty of the country. I'll give you one scenario where we had a very big problem. IGAD had decided on the issues between South Sudan transition. But at some stage, the forces within were fighting to topple a sitting regime. Now, in his wisdom as our president said, you guys will have a problem. When such clashes came in Somalia, we advised people that preserve a sitting government so that you have a party to discuss with. We failed to do that. 21 years down the road, there's anarchy in Somalia. When the Americans wanted Libya, Gaddafi out of Libya, we told them, yes, Gaddafi may not be a good man, but don't create anarchy. Why don't we find a way of engaging Gaddafi so that you have an authority to engage with? The Europeans refused. Today, Libya is a hot soup. So if we allow this anarchy to step into South Sudan, which is now backyard, this problem is going to erupt in the entire region. Some of the members were saying yes, others were saying no. Unilaterally, we went in and supported the South Sudan government on one ground, that we wanted to preserve a government so that you have a legitimate institution you can use to engage with others. Just imagine if we had not done that. You would have another Somalia just down here
in South Sudan.
So those are very unfortunate situations, but sometimes enforcement has been part of our problem.
You see, the African continent, the blocs on the African continent are preoccupied in trying to bring peace as they're handling here, as something happens, they're handling here, even where they have been, again, another thing erupts. When do you think we shall reach that time as Africa, when IGAD sits to talk about exports between Kenya and Uganda only? How we can export tires to South Sudan, how South Sudan can export matoke to Khartoum. The blocs in Africa are so much preoccupied with talking peace. Do you think what will it take us to see discussions entirely on economic and business and trade?
Of course, security is also part of the economics. Regional security is
important. Yeah, but the challenge,
the major challenge is one. As Africa, most of our agenda is not ours.
Okay.
There are always external factors in all the battles that we fight. Many of you know what we've been going through in our neighborhood here, in DRC. Whereas you sit as a region to discuss objectively,
under the table, some other thing is happening.
And that's the major challenge with African
but
issues.
Still, these blocs would be able to say no to this.
You say no in meetings. I've sat in many meetings. Having been an ambassador in the region here, and that's part of the problem. And that
we
when you discuss,
no.
You may not have the backbone per se, but I think part of the problem is that we allow external forces, which either for control over us. But you have very few presidents in Africa who can go to such regional meetings and go back to their countries and even report to their people what they decided. That's why sometimes I salute President Yoweri Museveni. In most of these meetings, he's one person who goes to a meeting, says Uganda believes this, comes back, briefs the cabinet, and asks the caucus in parliament that I decide ABCD. Many of our African presidents, sometimes they make decisions for convenience. But when they get back, some of these resolutions are not implemented. But what do you do?
They cannot own it.
That is the sovereignty we are talking about. Sometimes you find that maybe there are weaknesses with the structure, maybe sometimes the governments are governments of alliances, maybe some governments are not fully in charge of the situations. And that's why when you have a president like President Museveni, who is fully in charge of a situation, it's a blessing. Otherwise, these resolutions should have been implemented, because that's the gist of making a resolution. But the clout and the means of how you translate them back, because at the end of the day, after deciding, go back to state actors. If some of these resolutions need either budget, maybe they get back to the budget, you don't have the money, and they have to look for somebody who doesn't believe in it. You know how much we've suffered with the oil pipeline, because most of the money must come from those countries outside, and they didn't want it. We have suffered all along. Then you call them again, you renegotiate, until someone is pleased to fund it or not, and you find it's not working. So that also happens with some of us in African countries with our government that are funded.
We have another leader here who was just jetted in, and let's wait to be told by the people at
that
the
another
airport.
plane is landing.
No, who actually this is, but there he or she is, and we'll update you, our viewer.
Oh, it's another plane landing?
Yes. Then there's also another delegation disembarking. I don't know led by who, but it's a delegation still coming in to be party to the summit we are hosting in the Republic of Uganda. Okay? Uganda is, this is, you can't fail to feel proud.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Any right-thinking Ugandan should feel proud about this.
Let's talk about regional security. How would you rate the state of affairs in the IGAD region, East Africa?
It's still volatile. It's still volatile. Yeah, I must say it's still volatile. Because you see, in all these matters, the state structures and their strength
plays a pivotal role. Okay.
Now, if the state structures are not fully in charge of the matters that command stable security, then definitely you get to have a problem. But also sometimes we get vulnerable to interference by other major players who have their agenda. Because definitely the whole problem, as the President has always been saying, until we have real full independence of our own African countries, economic independence, is the major problem here.
Okay.
Whoever pays the piper dictates
the tune.
the tune. So that problem, even in our homes, definitely if the head of family, you're not fully in charge. Sometimes your cloud at authoritative assert yourself becomes a problem.
Quagmire becomes sure deal.
That's why we've been, the good thing which the new development that has happened, there is the commercial diplomacy component. Possibly it is going to help us if it is really well developed among African nations. Commercial diplomacy means that we should have a free movement of goods and services across our region. But if you still need a visa to go to a neighboring country, honestly, then where is the freedom? So we need to work for that. If we really need to have intra-Africa trade, what we need in Uganda and in Nigeria has it, we freely access it. What is a shortfall maybe in Libya and can be supplied within Africa. That exchange of trade generates internal revenue within Africa and possibly the dependence on the global forces outside.
There is something I look at with the free movement all around Africa, balancing it with continental security and regional security. If people just enter anywhere, anyhow, how easy or difficult is it to manage security?
I'll give you...
Somebody may cause mayhem in Uganda,
I'll give you the case.
but he is free to enter Kenya and hide.
I'll give you the case of Uganda. Which neighboring country doesn't freely enter Uganda, and what hazard do we have so far? Nothing. Congolese are all over this place. The Dinkas are owning even land. It's not a very serious security threat as we normally portray it, but because security is the most understandable language, people can always use as a scapegoat.
Okay.
It becomes a problem. I will tell you, I was Uganda's ambassador in DRC, and for quite some time we tried to apply for flight rights for our airlines. That time there was not even Uganda Airlines, but flights that were operating within Uganda to freely enter DRC. We were surprised to find that DRC was allowing flights from all countries other than neighboring countries. Because Angola could not fly in, we could not fly in, Rwanda could not fly in. Why? Because some operatives were using it as a security reason. And in one meeting I was seated with what some of them said. If you really use an airplane as a flight, as a reason to bring in people to invade you, you know that I have 800 kilometers of borderline with the DR Congo. And on foot, we could enter more troops than even those people would come on a flight.
Sure.
Then why do you think it's important to stop an airline when you can't stop the entire stretch
the porous situation around borders.
From Arua up to the bottom? But you know, the security people could not have a very good answer. But because when they want to drive a point home, they always say, if you allow a plane, but the plane lands in Kinshasa, which is in the opposite direction, very far away from the borderline where it would cause trouble.
True.
But the language of insecurity is always used. I will tell you, people moving across borders are not a security scare. It is just our internal weaknesses.
Okay.
And actually, if we opened it up and people don't abuse it, tomorrow it will be just like a normal thing of working to your neighbor's house. But when you know you have a perimeter wall and then you have your dogs and you have your surveillance cameras, you actually become more insecure than my brothers and sisters in the villages who don't even have perimeter walls. Are you telling me people are more secure here in Kampala with perimeter walls than us in Ruwero where we are separated by gardens and trees?
You just plant a few plants.
Absolutely.
to demarcate you.
It is a tool used, and of course, somehow I think those who don't want a united Africa, we drive it home among our countries. So you guys don't have to allow people from this country to come in and so on.
This looks like the president of Equatorial Guinea, His Excellency Nguema. Yes, he has also jetted in. Is it Guinea or Equatorial Guinea? Yes, that is Equatorial Guinea. That is Nguema Basogo. Yes, he is also in Uganda, welcomed also and received by the Honorable Henry Okello Oriem at the Entebbe International Airport. That is a country with a lot of gold. They have a lot of gold mines, and
oil?
They have oil and gold, yes. So those are people that you really host, and you can anticipate sharing a lot to do with minerals. Honorable, it looks like the minutes you gave me are really gone, and you would love to leave.
No, it's been a pleasure to be here because you have enough time here to explain, share, and also learn from other people.
To you watching us, that is the President, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Basogo. Like I said, he is an Equatorian Guinean politician and former military officer who has served as the second president of Equatorial Guinea since 3rd August 1979. As of 2024, he is the second longest consecutively serving current non-royal national leader in the world. That is according to Wikipedia. He was born on the 5th of June 1942. He is aged 81 years. Yes, his spouse is Constantia Mbang and is an Equatorial Guinean. What would be your message to Ugandan watching us, as I would love to set you free, having arrested you?
First of all, the message is that I want to share with you my happiness that this is happening to us here. Hosting all these people, don't mind about the personalities, but the fact that you are hosting presidents of sovereign countries in your capital, who is not one or two, three. Of course, some of us are lucky have seen more than one president. Okay. But there are people who have not seen more than their president, Museveni, let alone just standing near him. Yes. So this is a blessing to have 1, 2, 3 up to counting of those numbers, presidents in your own capital. That is 1. 2. Cameras of the respective countries of the world focusing on Uganda.
Every country will have cameras follow their president.
Follow their president. And I think the other, we are non-aligned, but I think the aligned groups will also be interested in knowing what we discuss, who attends, who doesn't attend, and so on. So it means even cameras from members of non-aligned movement countries and their media houses are also focusing.
They will pick interest.
Pick interest in the resolutions we make and so on. So it's an opportunity to sell Uganda and promote Uganda, especially in this era where we're talking about commercial diplomacy. We think that we need to substitute the traditional way of doing diplomacy to commercial, returning value. Okay. And I'll tell you that during this time where we've been emphasizing a lot more on commercial diplomacy than just the traditional one of resolving conflicts.
It's something small as we wind up. There is a debate of whether the countries in the non-aligned movement can still continue not to get aligned to any other eruptions of disagreement within the world setting.
No, non-aligned talks about the blocks, because as we know, the world has got blocks, but doesn't mean that you cannot have friends in the other groups. Our non-aligned, the bottom line is, if I'm capitalist, I can freely talk to anybody in the Soviet bloc without you dictating on me. But you know, the NATO, like for example, if you start with the NATO, an attack on one is an attack on all of us.
A few minutes ago, you told me that we don't take absolute decisions on our affairs.
Yes, but they impact on you. Whether you take them or listen to them.
So are we not formally not aligned, but...
we're non-aligned.
Formally?
Yes, non-aligned means that you don't encumber my decision on this block. For example, if you belong to NATO, you cannot cooperate with any other person. But for us here, if it is an issue of fighting freedom fighters, we can get the support from Russia. But if it is a commercial, we can go to your AGOA. So I don't have to mix up issues. I have an independent mind on how I associate with you, but not encumbered or blocked by the ideological structure of where I belong to you, either in the West. You know, you had the pro-West, pro-East.
Yes.
Yeah. And this one, they say for us, we are not pro-East, we are not pro-West, but we are pro our issues. So if I have a problem in Uganda and I want to pick it from America, I can pick. That was telling you where the problem during Gaddafi's time. President Museveni was telling everybody that when we needed help, Gaddafi helped us. But the Americans, when we came to power, said, you should not work, you should not even seek Gaddafi. Said, no, but your enemies do not automatically have to be my enemies.
Sure.
You know, we call it Mpalaniraku here
in our local language.
So yes, in our local language, that if you're my enemy, then all your friends must be my enemies. No. For us, we say, she can be your friend, you can be my friend, but it does not necessarily mean that we're also friends because they are friends, or vice versa.
So your friends can actually be my enemy.
Absolutely,
And
but I'm
your
not even going
allies.
to ask you to be my friend's enemy simply because I have his
disagreements
yes.
with them.
So the principles in non-aligned movement is there are issues that bring us together. And two, this is a very important block, even in the UN, because finally we all climax in the clan meeting as the United Nations members. Okay. But if you have issues to lobby, then there is somewhere you can lobby and say, when it comes from the Western Bloc, us with an alliance with this group, we can drive our agenda through and so on.
Does the non-aligned movement have economic influences?
Oh yes, it has but economic, as I told you now, the major player now in diplomacy, next to war, which was at the center stage then, is economics. It's business.
Okay.
That's why you see America has issues with socialist people, but trades with China. It's their major trading partner, but they tell us don't bring Chinese here. Yet for them, all their companies are in China. so if you don't have a clear leadership, if you don't have clear goals, sometimes you'll get
as some of us African countries are in these blocks and or unions, but we don't, how would I term it? We used to make friends in school. You have broken shoes, but you have friends with very beautiful shoes. They are dropped in the morning. They eat at the canteen. If you don't go to the to the dining hall, you will starve and things like that.
At school, yes.
Some of us African countries look like that. We are in unions of people with very good shoes.
At school, yes. But
no, I mean,
if you have such a person as an OB, somehow later on he may have an opportunity of getting his old shoe.
I want you now to translate it in the non-aligned movement, and some of these blocks we enjoy to rub shoulders with people I would call big as African countries, yet we still have economies that are slow.
You can't wish them away.
We still have broken schools, broken bridges. What does this tell about us? Are we not taking good use of these unions?
We do, but on their
affiliations.
Terms. We do, but on their terms. That's the challenge I was talking about in Africa. Whatever we take, we have to take it on the terms of the givers until we finally get the capacity to make our own.
Yeah, but I thought if these were unions and affiliations, we all come with equal rights to and bargaining power and things like that.
You're taking me the debate of equity and equality and so on. That's not true. We may never be equal. Even us, we may never be equal. But equitably, we can see how to work out and help each other. That's why you get their grants. But the grants are also conditioned, particular conditions. You see, you have a lot of friendship with Kenya. But if you drop that partnership with Kenya, we are going to do this. I remember when we had just come into power, when we believed a lot in barter trade.
Yes, I've heard the story.
We signed agreements of grains to exchange and sell, even to Yugoslavia and so on. The following day, they dumped their offers instead of selling. Say, Uganda is selling to you. For us, we are giving it to you free of charge.
Okay. This is an arrival of His Excellency, the President of Namibia. And he has landed at Entebbe International Airport. And I'm being corrected that it's the Vice President, not President, but that is the official plan for...
The Vice President represents the President.
Definitely, yeah, it is the leader from Namibia that has just arrived at Entebbe International Airport. Your Excellency, I would love to release you like you had requested.
I love it
to give us
the way you're in real time. You're informing Ugandans.
Definitely, we are the national broadcaster. It would actually make news if we did.
Absolutely, exactly. So I want to salute you for the vigilance, and we also have to recognize it is your duty, but if you perform it effectively,
not everybody plays their role well.
Exactly. So
yes,
we need to salute you for that vigilance and diligence.
To you watching UBC TV, we expect a number of heads of state who will attend the IGAD summit that is being held today, although the non-aligned movement summit continues. It is day 4 now, so Uganda would be termed as a beehive of activities.
And immediately after the other one, get 77.
Yes. We thank you so much for watching. Let us continue receiving these heads of state and dignitaries and delegates as we continue to give them to you here on UBC TV. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. We shall take a very short break and return with more. watching UBC TV. We are a beehive of activities as Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Today, we are hosting the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, which is an 8-country trade bloc in Africa. It includes governments from the Horn of Africa, Nile Valley, and the African Great Lakes, and its headquarters are in Djibouti. The member states are Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia. That's the Horn of Africa. Then the Nile Valley has South Sudan, the Great Lakes, which is Kenya, and Uganda. It was established in 1986 as IGAD, and it has a total area of 5,204,977 square kilometers. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development was established in 1996. It succeeded the earlier Intergovernmental Authority on Drought and Development, which was IGAD with double D at the end. Yes, there is a leader here being welcomed by the Honorable Judith Nabakova on arrival. Yes, but as we continue, this was a multinational body founded in 1986 by Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya, with a focus on development and environmental control. The IGAD, the one with double D at the end, whose headquarters were later moved to Djibouti following an agreement signed in January 1986 by the member states. Eritrea then joined the organization in 1993 upon achieving independence. In April 1995, the Assembly of Heads of State and Government met in Addis Ababa, where they agreed to strengthen cooperation through the organization. This was followed with the signing of a letter of instrument to amend the IGAD Charter, call it an agreement, on the 21st of March 1996. The revitalized IGAD, a new organization structure, was eventually launched on the 25th of November 1996, and that was in Djibouti. Its structure is in this form. It has the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. I think that's where the heads of state, the president, prime ministers of those member states sit. And this is the supreme policy-making organ of the authority. It determines the objectives, guidelines, and programs for IGAD and meets once a year. A chairman is elected from among the member states in rotation. Then there is a secretariat headed by an executive secretary appointed by the Assembly of Heads of State and Government for a term of 4 years, renewable once. The secretariat assists member states in formulating regional projects in the priority areas. It facilitates the coordination and harmonization of development policies, mobilizes resources to implement regional projects and programs approved by the Council, and reinforces national infrastructures necessary for implementing the regional projects and policies. The current executive secretary is Wokne Gebeyu, and he comes from Ethiopia. He took over in November 2019 on the 29th. Then there is the Council of Ministers, which is composed of Ministers of Foreign Affairs and one other minister designated by each member state. The Council formulates policy, approves the work program and annual budget of the Secretariat during its biennial sessions. Then the Committee of Ambassadors, which comprises of IGAD member states ambassadors or plenipotentiaries accredited to the countries of IGAD headquarters. Each country sends an ambassador to Djibouti, where the headquarters sit. It convenes as often as the need arises to advise and guide the executive secretary. The ambassador Mahub handed over as secretary, executive secretary to Wonek, and that is the structure. So today we are having the Assembly of Heads of States is the one that is going to sit in Uganda at Entebbe State House today, and that's why you have seen the arrival of His Excellency William Ruto, the arrival of the President of Equatorial Guinea, and other presidents that have arrived. Yes, we expect another head of state to arrive in a few minutes or seconds. That's why you can see a parade mounted to receive and welcome this head of state. What are the purposes or the mission of IGAD? It is to assist and complement the efforts of its member states in areas of peace, security, agriculture, environment, economic cooperation, and social development. Once IGAD became a public international organization, a regional development objective grant agreement was signed in June 2016. And we are going to see a sitting today of the heads of state that are here. Already we have His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is the convener of today's meeting. Convener or host? He is the host because they are sitting at Entebbe, where he is the host. We have seen President William Ruto arrive. We saw that is the President of Kenya. We have seen the Equatorial Guinea President arrive. That is President Teodoro Obiang Nguema. And then we saw the President of Djibouti that arrived. We are expecting another president. I can see a plane and the parade being mounted to receive him. And if you can look at your screen clearly, you also see the facility where they are going to meet, flags already being paraded properly, and the venue of the convention room where they're going to meet also prepared. The screen tells the whole story in detail. Yes, like I said, we have President Ruto, President Museveni, President of Guinea, and President Obiang Nguema who have arrived, and we also see another president who is arriving. Then the president of Djibouti, who is also expected to be part of this sitting. His name is Ismail Omar Guelleh. He's the current president of Djibouti. He has been in office since 1999, making him one of the longest serving leaders in Africa. He's often referred to by his initials as IOG. President Ismail Omar Guelleh. Yes, to some little information about him. He's the current president of Djibouti. He has been in office since 1999, and he assumed office in 1999, yes. He was first elected as president still in 1999 as the hand-picked successor to his uncle Hassan Gold Aptidon, who had ruled Djibouti since independence in 1977. Guelleh was re-elected in 2005 and he won. 2011 he won, 2016 he won, and he also won in 2021. Okay, now we have the Speaker of Parliament for Oman. That's the plan. This could be now a guest to attend the Non-Aligned Movement Summit, which is still ongoing. That is the Speaker of Parliament for Oman, who has just arrived at Entebbe International Airport. The Speaker of Parliament for Oman. His name is Abdulaziz bin Fahad. He's the Speaker of the Council of State. they're being welcomed to Uganda. He must be here for the Non-Aligned Movement Summit, because among the IGAD states that we saw, Oman is not among. It is actually called the Council of Oman. It's a bicameral parliament made up of the members of the State Council and the Constitution and the Consultation Council, as stipulated in the Article 58 of the Basic Law of the state. It is considered to be the main parliament in Oman, and the gentleman being welcomed there is the Speaker. It assists the government in drawing up the general policies of the state. The council meets at the request of the Sultan to study and discuss matters raised by him, taking all its decisions on the basis of majority vote, and the Sultan addresses all the the members of the council on an annual basis, of which there are 15 women members. 14 of them are in the council among the 169 members of parliament. So the leader is the gentleman you see on your screen, being ushered into the VVIP lounge at Entebbe International Airport on arrival to be part of the Non-Aligned Movement. So Uganda is hosting IGAD today, the Non-Aligned Movement Summit that has been on since Monday with different activities, and then the G77 plus China, which will come in last. Yes, the Non-Aligned Movement membership consists of 120 countries. There are 53 countries from Africa, 39 from Asia, 26 from Latin America and the Caribbean, and 2 from Europe. It also includes the non-UN member state of Palestine, 17 other observer countries, and 10 observer organizations. Yes, this leader is being seen off to continue from Entebbe Airport up to another destination, which could be most probably Entebbe State House, where we expect the IGAD summit that is going to sit this afternoon. We thank you otherwise for following UBC TV as we carry on our mandate to ensure that you are informed and kept updated about whatever is happening as our country gets to be very busy now to ensure that we successfully host these 3 summits here at home. I talked about the Equatorial Guinea as a country, and I talked about their prowess in gold mining and possession of oil. The mining industry in Equatorial Guinea. The regulation of mining in Equatorial Guinea is handled by the Ministry of Mines, Industry and Energy, which oversees activities in the mining and petroleum industries. Petroleum exploration and production is the core of Equatorial Guinea's economy. This is what they have as a backbone, just as we have coffee growing, matoke and things like that. For them, it is oil exploration. And it accounts for over 90% of Equatorial Guinea's national income. As a result, little attention has been given to exploring and making use of the country's mineral resources. According to this source, there are no commercial mining activities, although there are minor gold mining operations. The government has conducted preliminary explorations that they believe show potential mining opportunities for diamonds and coltan. And the Ministry of Mines is now promoting the country's mining potential in hopes of attracting investors. Historically, it's a country with people. The peoples of Equatorial Guinea produced gold and iron before being colonized by Spain. Before the white man went to rule them in their land, they were already mining gold. And during colonial rule, there were no commercial mining operations following independence in 1968. Soviet and French geologists found potential deposits of gold, bauxite, tin, tungsten, and coltan. Additional surveys conducted by GEMSA, a Spanish Equatorial Guinea joint venture, and UMKEG, Once Energy, previously named United Meridian Corporation, performed airborne and land surveys as well as the creation of GIS database. We thank you so much for watching. We'll continue giving you updates, and as we continue to welcome guests from far and near to be part of the summits that Uganda is hosting. It's UBC TV. Keep it with us.